Hey guys, Coach Keith Kepner here, and I'm going to answer some questions from some channel members from a post I put up about 2 weeks ago. I meant to do this sooner, got super busy as it goes. So, answering these questions, let's dive into it. There's a lot of boxing information, tips, things that might help you with your game. So, I definitely recommend you watch this video. All right, first question from Luis is pocket defense and exiting from it. I also feel slow when countering in combinations. When he counters with more than 2 shots, he says. So pocket defense and exiting from it. With exiting from the pocket, that good adage of simply exiting around and not back is pretty darn important. If you're going to exit back, unless you're looking to throw a punch off of the back exit or stepping straight out, you probably want to take a double step out. Take a large step out with the chin down, or take a step out as you dip out. That's a good tactic as well. But even easier is exit around, around, around. If you're in the pocket doing your thing, you want to exit with a punch as you turn around, or exit under a punch, or just exit around, of course, with the chin down. That's simply the easy answer. Now, countering with combinations that are more than 2 punches, what I see almost all the time are very common with lower level beginner fighters, meaning that you've only been boxing for a few years, is they'll try to throw counters with too much force and intention behind it that causes a delay. I was just seeing this yesterday. Shooting the counter punch off of a block or a slip or whatnot, and they really try to get something going on it, and that really trying to get something going on it creates delay, and that delay costs time, doesn't allow you to throw. So when you counter, one, don't try to counter too hard. Focus on just disruption, all right? Almost like smacking somebody, but just make sure we hit with the knuckles, and interrupting somebody. Then it's almost like this. It's almost like when you're trying to interrupt someone. If you're trying to be too thoughtful with your interruption, you're going to be slow on your interruption. Same thing with your counter. You're trying to be too thoughtful with your punch, perhaps, or your combo that you're trying to counter with. So it's best to just let a couple hands go off. They don't need to be hard, and that can set up your hard punch, but at least be enough to interrupt them. If I'm throwing punches at you and your counters are too thoughtful and take too long to throw, then I can anticipate them and I can see them coming. But if your punches aren't the hardest, but if they're just smacking me in the face as I'm trying to counter you, that's enough to disrupt me and keep me a little bit controlled, all right, and allow you to land bigger shots than later. All right, hope that makes sense. Jay asks, he asks about hydration, but then, okay, I'm getting where I'm throwing more and going for combos. I find I struggle with skilled high pressure fighters. Well, that's a hard thing to, hard type of fighter to deal with. I feel like it saps my energy even when I'm not doing a whole lot. Yes, that is the goal. My style was a little bit more of that pressure fighter, and the goal is to get somebody to lose energy. Why? How are you getting them to lose energy? You're getting them to lose energy by tension, by you simply just being in their face, and you just being in their face, they're tense, and that takes energy because their muscles are contracting. Their mind is distracted because they have anxiety at that moment. And then as well, all the different things I remember one boxer I had said he felt like people were sucking his oxygen from him being right up in their face, or them being right up in his face. So it's something that you have to just focus on getting used to being in that fire. That's where different situational sparring drills are great. The tire thing drill is a little bit, it's not as expansive as I would like for it to be. But one thing I have done is cordoned off the ring, so now it's like a phone booth. So like a rope here and a rope here, and now you're stuck here with somebody. Make sure the punches are 70%. You're not trying to murder each other, but now you're in the pocket the whole time. Or you could cordon off the ring into a quarter of the ring and accomplish the same thing with a little bit more space. But getting used to just being in the pocket and then learning how to relax, and that takes some bumps and bruises to do that, and it takes some struggle and getting sometimes past the point of fatigue until you'll finally relax, and now you actually know what you need to do, and your body knows where it needs to put its energy versus just having enough energy or an excess of energy that it continues to throw it everywhere. When people get past the point of exhaustion, then they start to better utilize the energy that they have because they have so little of it. And when you do that, that's when you reach that high level of complete relaxation and only putting effort where it needs to be put. All right. Now, he also says when he's throwing his counters and things like that and putting punches together, he feels like he gets stuck in defensive movement and then struggles with finding gaps to throw without eating a stray shot. This is where I commented on it, but also something as well, Jay, I want to talk about is trying to bring the head offline to different sides as you're throwing. All right, so weaving under, things like that. Have your head on one side as you throw, head on the other side, because you might have your head in one place as you throw, and it's right there. He could close his eyes and hit it. That's something I've been working on with one of my guys recently. Is he'll throw his hands and it'll be right there. Versus be over here as you throw punches, be over here as you throw punches, be a little bit down as you throw punches. So that way you can't just close your eyes and touch them. All right. User VL3 says, hey, coach, I've been trying to use a narrow stance, and I'm curious where/how I generate stability. The guys at the gym are bigger than me, and when I block, they tend to push me around. Okay? Great question, user. Right. So how do you generate stability? Well, one thing is, okay, so even if you got a more wide stance, believe it or not, you still have to resist somebody pushing you around, right? If I'm like this and you push me, if I don't create some resistance, some tension in my back leg, if you're pushing me from the forward, I am going to do that, right? So there is resistance that is being created. You have to make sure with this more narrow stance that you're creating the same resistance. You can do the same thing similarly, all right? Now also too, it doesn't hurt to let that push sometimes lock you or drop you into that, but then when you're at that, you can push off, all right? Now, this other thing I'll say to you as well is perhaps you also need to work on the nuance of blocking and keeping balance. So you can have a stance that's fairly narrow, like this, and block punches and not let them move you around that are pretty hard. And that's where you actually have to actually slightly resist hard punches as they come, because I've seen this happen a lot of times with guys. They'll tense with the arm to block a punch, but then there's no stabilization of the body. So a punch comes and they'll, like typically a right hand, right? They'll block a right hand and they'll be in a wider stance, doesn't matter. And they'll, boom, that will happen. They'll slide back, all right? So the same thing can happen from a wider stance or a more narrow stance, where you have to be able to almost lean into the punch very slightly to resist against it, to allow it to not control you. But then also the overall macro answer to that as well, user, is maybe drop your torso a little bit more to make yourself lower. It could be a bend of the knees, right? Without seeing you, it's hard for me to tell, but obviously the legs are too straight. That's a problem. We don't want to over bend the knees because that will burn out your legs as well. So make sure you have soft knees, but also make sure you curl up your torso a little bit, because that will lower your center of gravity automatically as well, make you have to move less to block, and then also make you stronger while you're blocking. All right, let's see. Gautam Sharma 162 says, defense against southpaws, especially hand defense. I can't confidently use my hand blocks and defense against orthodox fighters, but I tend to only really, or I can confidently use my hand block and defense against orthodox fighters, but I tend to only really exchange with southpaws or fight for the outside position. How can I minimize exchanging against a southpaw the same way I can against orthodox fighters? Okay, well, it seems like there might be a couple questions in here, but the main question that stands out to me is use my hand block against orthodox fighters. I tend to really only exchange against southpaws. Okay, or fight outside position. All right, so hand defense against southpaws. This is actually something that's easier than maybe a lot of people realize. So if you have an opposite stance boxer that you're going against, all you have to do, not all you have to do, but it's easier in some ways, because their ones and twos come down the pipe, right? Come down this way. So if my hand is in front, I will stop those ones and twos, theoretically, right? It can slam into my face. It can slide through. I need to be smart about where it is, right? My lead hand is here, and it will stop some of the ones, depending what the angle comes from, and their lead hook, right? I might have to pull it back. I might have to come off my face. So I'm here, let's say, like this. The hook comes around. I might need to come out here. And if it's a little bit more in tight, I might need to pull it up here. So going from here to get it coming around. But from there, I'm stopping the 1, 2, and the 3 automatically. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our 4 and a 5 that we talked about is the rear uppercut and lead uppercut. That's 4 and the 5. But you're stopping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, right there. An opposite stance fighter is at a slight detriment in some ways because they're not able to reach around this rear hand as easily. They can, but not as easily. Why is that? Because think about your 2, your rear straight. You don't have the lead hook to wrap around so easily. That's what makes it fighting an orthodox fighter hard with the backhand defense sometimes, is you have to be very quick at snapping the hand back. If you're not, that 1 can turn into a 3, that jab can turn into a left hook and wrap around. And so you got to be ready for that. But the 2 turning into a rear hook, it's going to be slower. It's also just not going to reach as far either. And you can stop them a lot of times, depending on what your range is. All right. So 1 hand in front, the rear hand in front, the lead hand here to the side, right? Not so high it blinds you, but maybe pop it up sometimes. And that alone will stop a lot of the shots. Now, covering distance with punching without, okay, so Daniel asks, covering distance with punching without falling in too much. I would enjoy a video about effective partner drills. Yes, thank you. Look out, I do have a video about some partner drills, but thinking about partner drills for this concept. So falling in too much, how to cover distance without falling in too much. So making sure that the legs are what's bringing you there, okay? So you're doing your hooks or punches, and again, this is where shadowboxing is so important. So being able to boom, like that, and keep your weight back as you're bringing your feet in. If you're shooting a 2 and you want to step in with it, snap in with it here, bam, like that, and I'm making sure my head does not go over my lead foot. If it does, it doesn't go very much. And doing that with shadowboxing, another way to do it is with bands around your waist, not up here. If you put the band up here on the chest, then you're going to create too much momentum like that, in my opinion, which will create the fall. You put it on the hips so you keep that base and get that snap in. And then, of course, translate it to the bag as well. But then also sometimes maybe have a partner snatch the bag away from you, something like that, so that you have the floor taken away from you, so you have to actually find out if you can keep your balance or not. Then also, you could do partner drills where you're simply starting from out, stepping in with that lead punch that you're going to cover distance with, okay? So you're obviously being mindful of your balance and everything else as you do it, but then sometimes your partner's going to pull the rug out from under you and dip under that hook or right hand or whatever it is, or step out further of it at the last moment. That will help you feel where your balance is. Now remember, everything comes from repetition. So you do it one day, one time, it's not going to make a difference. You do it multiple times a week, multiple times each session, and you do that for multiple weeks and for months. Now you built up a new foundation. Another one as well is with the mitts. So that way you don't have to even hit a partner. Have someone hold the mitt, and you got to step in, let's say with like a left hook that you cover distance with, and they snatch it away. You'll know if you're leaning or not, and you just correct for it. Focus again on bringing your base with you versus leading in with the upper body. Last question. Gaius, G-I-U-S, Gaius Malia asks, hi coach, fighting inside and mid-range, trouble with balance stance. If I should be more square with my wide stance, I have a habit of leaning back on my heels, getting off balance, and how to line up with opponent so I'm in a good position to defend and attack. Thank you. Okay, so if I should be more square. Okay, so, well, again, going back to the earlier topic, maybe don't be so wide, all right? Maybe focus on maybe a little more of a knee bend and slouching of the body down to bring you lower. Because see, I can be like this, bend my knees, and I'm like this. See, I'm not very low. Slouch my body down. That dropped me a little bit. And all those things add together to help you create a lower center of gravity. All right? More leverage. Now, With, let's say we're on the inside and I'm facing you like this, it's beneficial. You see a lot of great inside fighters. You see both. You see guys get square and you see guys be sided up, right? Both are fine. You might probably have a habit, as I see with most people, to be a little too square, in my opinion. And that makes it so you have to lean forward in order to not get knocked on the heels. Versus if you side yourself up a little bit, put your shoulder into them, your lead shoulder, and that creates kind of a barrier, one, to make sure you don't get tied up too much, but also from that, then as you throw a rear hand punch, you bring it over and it creates some space now. Then you come back with other punches, all right? And then from here, from a more narrow stance, then you can literally do that much to create a little bit of space on the inside. And if someone does push you back again as well, boom, that break can happen, that you can still be there, throw some punches, and come back in if you want to. So adjusting the stance, I recommend generally being more sided up on the inside as a rule, because it does tend to make you less of a target and less open, and it allows you to smother with your shoulder as opposed to your head. The challenge of sometimes smothering with your head, not that that's not a fine thing sometimes, is that against certain people that don't want to be a polite dance partner, they'll control that head, they'll push it down. It also is what opens you up for uppercuts. I've had plenty of people, myself included, but plenty of people that I coach, that they would always come in like this, put their head in like that. What's there? The alleyway for the uppercut. If I side up, though, there's a lot more things that get in the way of that uppercut besides just my actual body posture as well. So those are things to consider, because also if you're saying you're getting on your heels, man, it's pretty hard to get on my heels if I'm like this. It's pretty easy to get on my heels if I'm a little bit more square. Hope you guys enjoy this video. Hope this was helpful to those channel members and to you that are watching. If you're not a channel member, I recommend considering becoming one. I have something really massive coming out just in about a week, where I'm going to start custom boxing programs as well as general boxing programs, and I'm only going to do it for 5 people coming up. I haven't even set what the membership is going to be and everything else, but I've been building out these programs, putting them rather into something called True Coach, which is an awesome app that has videos and everything else with it, a way that you can send me videos so we can work together to help you achieve your potential. And it's the program I have in there right now is a 4-week program, and I've used it with quite a few of my fighters throughout the past 7 or so years, and it's been really helpful. That will be the first one that I'll launch, that for the first 5 people that can jump in, and then I'll be creating more programs and programs that are custom for you. So just look out for that information when it drops, as well as my boxing strategy and tactics book that I've been putting a lot of work into. It's in its final stages of editing, about halfway done with editing the book. That's going to be coming out soon. I might start doing pre-orders for that. I just have to figure out some logistics on that. And then I'm also going to do a ebook version of it and a audiobook version of it where I'm reading it. All right, guys, so just make sure you watch out for that stuff. If you enjoy this video, you feel like it was helpful, consider also supporting the channel by dropping a super thanks. You go to the bottom, click that heart with the $, buy me a cup of coffee, because Coach Keith lives off of coffee, and you know, that's how I have the energy to put in 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and of helping gyms like this succeed, but also helping you guys. Thanks for your support.